Very good morning. Welcome to NewsX. We're live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 125 across all our social media handles. We are Joe News on TV. Coming up within the next 60 minutes, widespread condemnation on nationwide attacks and looting of properties following the declaration of John Dramani Mahama as president-elect.
I've received reports of attacks on state offices and installations. While it's unclear who is behind these attacks, I condemn them in no uncertain terms. These acts must cease immediately.
We'll hear from various stakeholders in this bulletin. Also coming up, President Akufo-Addo and President-elect John Dramani Mahama name their transition team members. We'll tell you who they are and what's in store for you. Also, West African Examination Council worried about delays in releasing results of the 2024 WASI exams. We'll ask government why, because they say government is still owing them. We have these plus business updates here on NewsX. My name is Faustina Safo. Please take a seat and be my guest. Thanks for choosing us. We are your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. Well, stakeholders are worried about attacks on some state institutions following the announcement of John Dramani Mahama as president-elect. The attacks, allegedly by supporters of the National Democratic Congress, have been condemned by many Ghanaians and international community as well. There's been attacks on NADBO head office in Ayawaso East Municipality, at Kaneshi Metro Mass Station, at Kumasi Metro Mass Station, at Insamwam, the EC head office as well, and some key institutions. Well, let me run you through some of the statements from the international community condemning these attacks. We'll start with President-elect John Dramani Mahama, who has condemned attacks on state institutions and installations over the last 3 days.
I come before you tonight as your president-elect.
The president-elect reiterated his earlier message from his post-declaration speech, urging the youth not to channel their frustrations into criminal activities. Instead, he encouraged them to focus on rebuilding the nation positively.
I've received reports of attacks on state offices and installations. While it's unclear who is behind these attacks, I condemn them in no uncertain terms. These acts must cease immediately. As I said during my post-declaration speech, I urge the youth not to vent their frustration in criminal enterprise. Instead, they must channel their anger and frustration into the positive enterprise of resetting and rebuilding our beloved nation.
John Mahama also called on all Ghanaians to remain calm and avoid actions that could undermine the country's democratic institutions. He urged President Akufo-Addo and the security agencies to act decisively to address the ongoing acts of lawlessness.
We have fought hard for change, and now is the time to demonstrate our commitment to rebuilding the Ghana we want through unity and understanding. Because state power is still in the hands of the present administration, I call on the President and the security agencies to act decisively to curb the ongoing acts of lawlessness immediately.
To God be the glory, great things He.
Well, John Dramani Mahama is not alone in condemning these acts of violence across the country. We also have a statement from the Ghana Armed Forces. They are worried about attacks on their members, and that statement is coming up on your screen shortly. It says, GFA wishes to announce and once again encourage all Ghanaians to exercise their civic rights responsibly, cooperate with security personnel and refrain from any acts that could disrupt the peace. GAF reiterates its commitment to safeguarding the stability and sovereignty of the nation. GAF wishes to caution all and sundry that military personnel on authorized duty have the right to defend themselves, innocent civilians and property, including the use of lethal force if necessary to preserve life. Well, that's the situation on the ground. So we've been receiving statements from the international community also condemning this as well. And it's a source of worry to a lot of individuals. Let me bring in Dr. Asante. He's a political analyst. And we also have Dr. Victor Doke, a security analyst. I'll start with you, Dr. Victor. Post-electoral violence, how do we deal with it?
Well, thank you very much, and good morning to you and all viewers. Now, I think there's historical antecedent to this one. Now, let me just take our minds back to 2016, the aftermath of the declarations and all of that, what we saw, especially somewhere in Kumasi, the takeovers of what government institutions and installations, and the youth demanding that what the then incumbent or now incumbent, sort of like leave, and then ensuring on their own capacity that what certain vital, equipments, if I should put it that way, or whatever the government has purchased in line with social interventions will not somewhat, be used for personal gains or, be sold or whatever. So there is a historical antecedent to this, which we failed to deal with and has now become a norm with regards to elections, aftermath, and the declarations. Now, however, what is happening now, I call it, is a mix of party supporters and a mix of thugs or criminals that have taken advantage of the situation. You have aggressive youths who feel that going to a state institution or their presence there makes them somewhat entitled to an employment opportunity or whatever be. So then their agenda is to announce their presence there in the name of safeguarding properties. But we all know the mandated institution, the Ghana Police, is the mandated institution to enforce or protect state institutions, protect lives and property. So I think we need to have a very strict approach to deal with this. We are looking at the next elections. And if we fail to deal with this as we failed dealing with it in 2016, we'll have a repetition of this one.
It's a statement from the NDC demanding that all their supporters withdraw from Collation Center. But there's also a bigger concern because of the key issue raised in the 9 constituencies that are yet to be announced by the EC. There are also key concerns being raised about looting. A case in point is at Ablikuma West, where the residence and head office of Esla Wusu was ransacked by thugs and items stolen. How then do we deal with such situations?
Well, I see it. In all, it's just one approach to deal with all this, be it at coalition centers. And that is what I said. Now you have criminal elements that are taking advantage of the situation, which is not supposed to be so. So now, holistically, we are still in the aftermath of elections, 3 phases, before, during, and after. So I really am trying to understand why the Election Security Task Force somewhat took their feet off the pedal. Because if they had maintained the same approach, right, the red alert during the elections, trust me, they would have picked some early warning signs and then dispatched men to deal with this. But as we're seeing now, the approaches are all being somewhat reactionary. It is after when they have been invited or called in. But what shouldn't be the case? So we need a little bit more proactiveness with regards to the police. Now some arrests have been made. Quickly prosecute, okay, those who are found guilty. That will serve as a deterrent to the others, irrespective, those who are the polling stations and all of that. Holistically, you're looking at a circle, election management bodies. How can they ensure that the processes right from coalition centers do not delay? Because what is happening now is in relation to conflict we call the frustration aggression theory. Now, if you frustrate people with regards to what their rights, and here we're talking about what votes, you would definitely have the human being react aggressively. And that is what is being exhibited now. However, the state institution, the security apparatus should be firm, but we are seeing some kind of what relaxed, momentum as at this period. And then the youth are taking advantage of the fact that one, there's a new government in place, and then the mindset that it is our government. So whatever we do, even if we are arrested, we will be what? Taken out. But we need to follow up, even if there has been prosecutions, so that we do not encourage criminality. So I would entreat all of our stakeholders, including the forces, the media, those who are prosecuted, let's make sure that they are where they are.
But we're seeing some sort of disregard of the state institutions and security forces, because we've heard from the Ghana Armed Forces, they are worried about attacks on their personnel deployed to ensure peace and security. We heard from the Ghana Police Service that they have already activated their post-election security measures, but it doesn't seem to be trickling down with individuals on the ground. Does it show some sort of disregard for the security agencies?
Let me take it one by one. Now, we know what the military has said, and they have made it clear. The use of what? Lethal force. Okay, so we definitely know what is going to happen in the coming days if this should go on. Now, this is because of what has happened with regards to citizens challenging the military, right? Not to say that what some of the military personnel themselves did with the video in, I think, Akritia or elsewhere was right. But then, where you have the military deployed to keep the peace, and then innocent citizens, citizens taking advantage of the situation because they are calm, and then what? Trying to violate their rights, then definitely you have this kind of, force being applied. Now, with the Ghana police, this is their responsibility. They are in charge of the elections, right? They term it as their baby. Now, if they say they have activated the post-election security measure, why are we having these kinds of events? It means there's a challenge. Challenge where? Is it capacity, the men, the resources? Is it intelligence gathering? So how about you also issuing a statement that henceforth some lethal force will be used? Because post-election,
we seem to have lost you, Dr. Victor Doke, so that you can make that point. But I'll come back to you because you are proposing the use of lethal force, and the Ghana Armed Forces have served notice that that may be the approach they may adopt moving forward. But then we also have to look at the thin line between enforcing the law and the abuse of human rights. So we'll come back to you for that. But let me bring in Dr. Asante. You've been around for a while. Is this the first time we're experiencing something like this post-election? Let's go back in the annals of history.
I think this is not the first time. We have seen these things, particularly in the Fourth Republic, a reoccurrence of this. And our state has failed to deal with this. For me, what we are seeing is nothing but a creation. Part of the blame must be placed at the doorstep of political parties. When people misbehave after elections and they are arrested, instead of punishing them, they let them go scot-free. And it has created a certain impunity within the political sphere, that people think that once you win power, your party, even if you break any law, your party will absolve you and the rest of them. That has emboldened people to misbehave this way. But quite apart from the political party's creation, there are also criminal elements who also jump onto the bandwagon and create this type of situation for us. Those criminal elements, you find it difficult to separate them from party people who also misbehave in such a fashion. So at the end of the day, once party people are absolved, they are also included and they are absolved together and all that. I think that these problems as a society or as a state, we need to look at them and deal with them. There is one thing I've also observed, that anytime we go for election, all our focus is on how we secure a free and fair election, and particularly when results are declared, any other thing is secondary to us, because that is what occupies our attention the most. But we forget about the fact that election has three phases: the pre-election phase, the election phase, and the post-election phase. All these three phases are critical that we need to safeguard and protect at all times and make sure that we keep the state together. We forget about this. I have also observed with pain that we tend to have problems before elections. We try to deal with them, but only by finishing one, at the end of the election, we tend to create another problem. We started seeing people snatching ballot boxes. You saw that as a problem. We started seeing macho men being used to intimidate people in election and by elections. We started seeing the use of vigilantes by the political parties. And we also saw in 2020 shooting of voters. And today we are seeing, a situation where people besiege collation centers, and then they will not leave. They vandalize the places, and then we've seen post-election a repeat of post-election violence and the rest of them. In all this, are we as a society ready to look at them and deal with them? No. And for me, I am not a prophet of doom, but if we don't put our foot down, I'm afraid this thing will continue to happen and people will take it a notch further. And for me, that is where my worry is.
When you say put our foot down, what approach do you recommend? Because we know that the police have arrested some 97 individuals across the country. As to what will happen with prosecuting these individuals, you've raised concerns about political influence and how that could affect the prosecution of these individuals. But then let's look at the warning from the Ghana Armed Forces that they might be forced to use lethal force moving forward because of the attacks on state institutions and their personnel sent on the ground to sort of diffuse some of these attacks. Is that the right approach to adopt?
The problem we are facing today is that why the police, which are supposed to keep internal security, why they are slow in this regard, is that they want to also safeguard their jobs. Because more often than not, when political actors like this misbehave and they are arrested, they are left off the hook. And if you don't take it as a security officer, you may incur the wrath of those who hold political power. So they want to tread cautiously. It is one factor that has also slowed down the ability of the police to deal with this problem head on. This problem is not beyond the reach of the police. I can assure you, if the police they are clear in their mind that they will not suffer any punishment afterwards, I tell you, they'll put their foot down and damn the consequence. But you've seen it over the years that most of the cases, these things do not go anywhere. So what do you expect them to do? Common sense demands that they have to also safeguard their jobs. And that is what we are seeing. We as a society have not dealt with this. We are only interested in the results are released. And we've heard what the Electoral Commission has said and all that. But how do you keep the country together? We forgot about it.
Dr. Asante, stay with me, because I want to come to you to find out how this will affect the international community's perception of Ghana post the elections and the implications it might have for the country. But let me wrap up with Dr. Victor Doke so that I can let him go. You are proposing the use of lethal force, but then there's a thin line between enforcing law and abusing human rights. How do you propose we create a balance? Doc, you have to unmute for me to hear you clearly.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Loud and clear. Please make the point.
Right. So the nexus between the lethal force and then human rights. Now, before I get there, before the Ghana forces put out a statement, they knew what they were doing, because then if the Directorate of Communications or Public Relations would have to do anything, it has to do it in the remit of the law. Now, what does the law say? Okay, when you have these kinds of situations, you use a de-escalation approach, is not working, and then you're attacking police and then soldiers, then a minimum force, as the police would say, will be used, and hence the armed forces says, well, lethal force. Now, the issue here is ensuring that there is stability, peace after elections. So then, if the citizens know they are flouting the law, and then the law states, if you flout the law, this is what is going to happen, you'll be dealt with. Okay, minimum force will be used in every circumstances to ensure law and order. I don't think it amounts to human rights abuses. Now, in cases where you have excesses, then you can talk about human rights abuses. But in all this, okay, I think you asked a question about how that affects our image internationally. Well, if we are not able to handle this well, I'm sure you've heard about the Global Peace Index. This is all the elements, the factors, characteristics that amount to what? The measurement, the successes of our peace, right, architecture, or the peace spectrum that can tell if we have dropped as we have from 51 to 55. So all of these amounts to it, how we handle these post-election violences. And for me, I'm saying that this should have been known. It should have been on the intelligence card of the security services, so that they would have planned well how to keep what the various sister security agencies, like they kept during the elections, post-election, how many weeks, how many months do we need to keep that coordinated effort? I think that wasn't done, because if it was, we would not be where we are, because we would have anticipated it. It happened in 2016. So why is it happening now? Because it was swept under the carpet. And I'm sure the security couples met. They did a post-event analysis and then identified all these threats. But we are having it again. And as my colleague speaker also said, the political aspect is playing here. What if, right, I use the force, the minimum force, against the people whose government is now in power? Will my job be secured? Right? Will the people who have been arrested be let go? And that's why I entreat the media. Follow up with these issues. Those who have been arrested, those who will be prosecuted. Let's watch. If the law says, for example, minimum 1 year or 6 months, let's follow up and ensure that all of these guys are in there for the required number of years. Anything contrary to that, you have the right to put it out there. CSOs will pick it up. And then the government will suffer the consequences, because now the voter is discerning. People put in their list of priorities the safety, the security, the aftermath of all these things. So I think now what the police needs to do is reactivate that phase during the election period. Coordinate with sister agencies, right? And then deal with this issue holistically, and then use the minimum force required by law. Because what we are saying here, burning of state institutions, it is a crime. So you cannot deal with this in a humble or a calm manner. You're looking at the police personnel all over there. Now, most of them do not have weapons. Weapons means batons. Not even talk about handcuffs. Not even talk about pepper sprays as a first emergency response. It is only the patrol team or the responsive teams that have weapons. So how do you even expect the police personnel to even say, I'm putting my life in the front line to defend? It becomes difficult. So that's why we are seeing most of them lay back and see the riots go on, because they can't do anything. Even if you and I were in the uniform, in that instance, we would what, secure our lives first. You're talking about these energetic, riotic youths coming at you, you can't do anything. So the only way is to what? Enforce, use minimum force where needed, and then be mindful of the aspect that what? You don't violate human rights.
Thank you, Dr. Victor Doke. Now, let me come back to Dr. Sir Santi, because we know that President Akufo-Addo and John Dramani Mahama, they have both commissioned a transition team to take over government, and we'll be coming to you for that. But I want us to just finalize on the point about security before we go into the transition team commissioning. With this pockets of violence we are recording and attacks on state institutions and installation, how will this affect the international community perception of Ghana?
It is incumbent upon us to make sure that we have peace before, during, after elections, because all these things will go into election observers' reports, and the damning verdict of all these things will have will soil our international image, if I may put it that way. So you want to keep the peace throughout the process. Authorities must begin to act now, because what we are seeing is nothing but what? A sorry story. It is not the best. We have to do that if we want to save our democratic credentials. Yes, even though we've gone through the election, results have been declared, what we are seeing, it's not the best, and it's going to undermine our credentials. So we need the security people to begin to act and all that. Why are people vandalizing state property and all that? It must be treated as a criminal offense, and the way it ought to be dealt with, it should be dealt with in that fashion.
Dr. Sasanti, let's look at the transition team, because we know that President Akufo-Addo and the President-elect John Dramani Mahama, they have both nominated their teams to ensure smooth transition of power. And the transition team, we know, is composed of experienced individuals drawn from various sectors, including the finance, ministry, governance, public administration. On your screen now is the transition team from government side. It has the finance minister, Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam, Henry Quartey, the interior minister. He also lost his seat. Dominic Intiwo, defense minister. That's the transition team from government side. And we also know that there are other names to that. Shelley Ayokoboche, she is the foreign affairs minister. We have Martin J. Kosa, he is local government minister, and the national security minister, Albert Kandapa. Still on government side, we have Dr. Evans Darkum. He is head of civil service. We have Dr. Nana Atu Arthur. He's head of local government service. Ambassador Mercy Deborah, she's secretary to cabinet. We also have Edward Esmenin. He is national security coordinator. Akosia Frima Ose Opare, she's head of presidential staffer. Godfred Yeboadami, the attorney general. Oseche Mensa Bonsu, the minister for presidential affairs. Now, let's look at the team that the President-elect John Dramani Mahama has put forward to help with the transitioning of government. We know that Dr. Edward Amani Bwama is a member of the team. He heads the IT department of the NDC. He's also director of electoral services. We have Edward Do Ajao. He's member of the Transitional Advisory Council. We have Julius Deborah, his co-chairperson. Johnson Asiedu Nketia, who is chairman of the party. The general secretary of the party, Fifi Fiavi Kwete, is also a member of the transition team. We have Dr. Kaysalatu Forsen, the minority leader, Mahama Yariga, is a member as well, and Gusi Tando. So that's the team put forward by both the NDC and the NPP to aid transitioning. For the NDC, we also have Dr. Callistus Mahama. He's member and secretary to the transition team. We have Dr. Valerie Sawyer, a member as well, and Professor Kwamna Ahoy, who is also a member. So I still have with me Dr. Asa Asante. Let's look at now the transitioning of government and how important it is to transition smoothly.
Transitions are very important, especially post-election transition teams, because they have very critical roles to play. One of it is that through this exercise, we are able to get knowledge as to what exists within the public office, so that it arms the new government with information and data as to the focus and direction it can take. It also helps us to help the new government to continue to govern, making sure that you are very much aware of the priority areas of government, for which reason you want to begin from and then strengthen that area. It also highlights some of the key leadership priorities and set the tone for how the new executive should act. So all in all this process helps to ensure the quality of governance from the word go. So I am not surprised that they put up the creme de la creme of the government architecture, that is our outgoing government, including some bureaucrats, and then of course experienced politicians who have also served in various ways in public service. Look at the NDC team. It's a team of experienced politicians, experienced legislators, experienced public servants, and experienced people who have made it in their various ways of professional endeavors. So we are getting the best. I have no doubt in my mind.
As we wrap up the conversation, I recall John Dramani Mahama during the campaign trail served notice that one of the key things he'll be doing when he assumes office would be the Operation Recover or Loot, where state institutions that have influence from government, and as a result, individuals in government who have benefited from state institutions would be prosecuted. What should we look forward to when it comes to the first 100 days of this government?
Obviously, that's the first thing that the government has to do. Looking at making sure that people account for the stewardship of their office. Yes, it is not a witch hunt, but it's part of the governance process that ensure equal playing field for government to have a smooth takeoff, because they are handing over the state of affairs to you. You have seen a few areas, even from opposition background, you are able to know what has gone wrong. You obviously will have to ask people to come explain their actions and inactions. If you read our constitution, the preamble of our constitution has a number of things, including the fact that we, the people of this country, who put our signature to the constitution to make it a living document, said that we believe in certain principles such as probity, accountability, and the rest of them. So if they are people are called to answer questions, it is in line with principles of governance, and then it is in tandem with the spirit and the letter of the constitution.
Thank you, Dr. Asante, for your time here on News 6. We're most grateful. And indeed, we are your election headquarters. Away from that, the West African Examination Council has disclosed that delays in the release of funds from the Ministry of Education are affecting the timely completion of post-examination processes for the 2024 West African Senior School Certificate Examination. WAEC reveals that though the marking of essay and practical component has been completed, the scanning of objective test cards has stalled due to the breakdown of scanners, they say. Now, they say this delay has been attributed to the lack of funds needed for repairs and other operational activities, and that's of concern to them. Well, what are the implications of the delay in releasing the results? Let's bring in Dr. Peter Anti as we look at the delay factor and how it will affect the printing out of results for individuals who wrote and sat for this examination. He is Executive Director for the Institute for Education Studies. It's not the first time we're hearing from WAEC that indeed government owes them. The last time we spoke to them, they were optimistic that government has released some tranche to them, but now they are crying foul because of the current situation. We just wanted to look at how it will impact on the release of the results. Have to unmute for me to hear you clearly. Unfortunately, we can't hear you as a result. If you just tune in, WAEC is raising concerns that there might be delays in releasing results for WASSCE, and they are quite concerned about it. They say it's as a result of the breakdown of some of the scanners they're working with, and they would need finances to fix it. They say that government is still owing them. The last time we spoke to WAEC, they were quite optimistic that government had released some of the funds and they were working with that. So at this point, they're raising another crucial concern. They want the money out. We're trying to get connection back to Dr. Peter. I'm hoping I can hear him loud and clear. Doc, unfortunately, we've lost him. Well, you're still watching News Desk. We'll be back with business after this quick breather.
Welcome back to Business on Newsdesk. My name is Winston Taki, and now to our first business story. Traditional authorities of the Ashanti region are admonishing the government to consider the reactivation of a national carrier to bolster air travel. This comes after the Prempeh, the first international airport in Kumasi, received its first set of international passengers traveling on Ethiopian Airlines after the upgrade to the international status. The Ghana Airport Company Limited courting travelers to patronize international flight to Prempeh, the first international airport. Managing Director of Ghana Airport Company Limited, Yvonne Opare, spoke of the potential of commercial flight to the airport.
The maiden flights. This is a test pilot flight. And so based on this, we are sure that other airlines would also be encouraged to come on board and patronize Prempeh, the first international airport. I encourage all residents of Kumasi and the neighboring regions to patronize this initiative that we've started because it is the patronage that will determine whether or not this would be viable. And so I encourage and I appeal to all neighboring regions and also the residents of Asante Mine to be excited about this. I know that the feedback that we are getting shows that there is excitement. People just wanted to make sure that this actually happens so that it will bolster their confidence. And so I'm very positive and I'm sure that going forward we would see more of this in the very near future. The next scheduled flight is for the 15th of December. And so my appeal goes to everyone. Buy your tickets, book your flights, make your reservations so that we can continue this good initiative for Asante Mine and for Ghana.
Are you able to confirm the number of people who were on this flight?
We had a good number of people for reasons we don't want to mention the exact number, but we had a good number of people. As it is expected, it's a maiden flight. There was uncertainty, so we wouldn't have a full capacity, but we did have a number of people who were on this flight.
It makes a journey back to the London in 2 hours. Do you have passengers on board already, people who are ready to go by this?
Reservations, and they'll be going back in 2 hours when the flight takes off again. Thank you. My name is Mrs. Yvonne Opare. Thank you.
Now, moving on, Kasona Global Imaging has reaffirmed its commitment to community development by donating essential educational supplies to Kinder Kids International School. This initiative aligns with the company's broader vision of fostering societal growth through impactful corporate social responsibility programs. There is more in the following report.
The donation ceremony brought together executives from Kasona, teachers, and students with the goal of enhancing learning conditions and inspiring academic excellence among the beneficiaries. Speaking at the event, the Chief Operating Officer of Kasona Global Imaging Ghana, Lenichiwu highlighted the importance of supporting education through CSR initiatives. She also urged other companies to contribute to community development through similar efforts.
The important part is to start the kid early. So when they are growing up, they move to higher education, they are not afraid if they learn it in a very early age. So as Kasona, I see this as a part of the social responsibility of our company. I would like to do a lot more actually, but it's something that one company cannot do by itself. So that's why I encourage other companies can do the same thing.
The Chief Executive Officer and Principal of Kinder Kids International School expressed heartfelt gratitude, emphasizing the significant impact of the donation on the student and the school as a whole.
The donation today from Kasona is a great impact to Kinder Kids International School because Science Lab is one of the requirements that the curriculum that we are running, which is the Pearson EdExcel, needs in place for the accreditation of our secondary school. So this donation by Kasona is such a great relief and a blessing to us, and we are so grateful and thankful to them.
Science teacher Nana Kwabena Kesu reflected on how the donation will positively influence teaching and learning processes at the school.
In our dispensation, where science education is at now, we're looking at not just theory, come to the classroom and there's just talk. We want hands-on activities. So we are excited about what Kasona has done for our school, Kinder Kids International School. We are not just grateful and then just not happy, but we are happy that these learners are going to experience science education to the next level. Hands-on activities, playing with materials and tools, exploring science, investigation, and actually coming out with proper conclusions for themselves.
That's all for business. For CNA standing by for the rest of the bulletin. For Steve.
Thank you, Winston, for bringing us business. Now, let's take you back to our earlier story. We told you that the West African Examination Council, they have disclosed that there are delays in the release of funds from the Ministry of Education, and that is affecting the timely completion of post-examination processes for the 2024 West African Senior School Certificate Examination. Now, let me bring in Dr. Peter Anti to just get a sense of what this would mean moving forward, especially now that we have new government in power. How will this affect the release of results?
Thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers.
Morning.
I think that throughout this year we have seen WAEC complaining bitterly about the lack of funds to run their activities. One thing that we need to understand is that WAEC always have a plan. They have their timelines in terms of when they conduct these exams. It happened during the BEC period where there were even rumors of a possible postponement because the amount of money that WAEC needed at that time was had not been released to them. I remember during those discussions, the majority chief whip, I think Honorable Anodonpre, even came out to indicate that government have released certain funds to WAEC. It happened after the papers were written. I remember indicating that the money that had been released to WAEC would not enable them do their post-examination activities, and exactly what we are experiencing now. What this means is that if the money WAEC is demanding now is not released to them, it is going to make it difficult for them to finalize their results and release it for the subsequent activities to be undertaken, especially looking at the calendar of the various tertiary institutions. And I think that is very unfortunate.
Thank you, Dr. Peter Anti. Now, at midday, when we come your way with Joe News today, we'll reach out to WAEC to get a sense of just how much exactly government is owing them and how much they have received so far. Because I recall that when we spoke to WAEC last time, they served notice that they have received some tranche of the money that government owes them. But as to exactly how much and how much is left, we'll get into that at 12 p.m. when we come your way with Joe News today. Away from that, collation for both Ablekuma North and Okaikwe Central has been sent to the Regional Collation Center after party supporters disrupted the process on Sunday. So far, Okaikwe Central has been resolved with results declared in favor of the NDC's Baba Sadiq. The NDC candidate, Irama, has been declared winner for Ablikma North parliamentary seat as well. James Aveji was on the ground chronicling all that has happened so far. He filed this report.
All of the chaos here at the EC Regional Coalition Center has come to an end. The day has been marked with chaos after chaos. Distracting the process was NDC party supporters breaking glass windows to the EC's Coalition Center. In the midst of the final chaos, the EC returning officer have been set to declare the NDC's candidate as winner of the election. Our cameras could not capture that declaration nor any figure mentioned of the two sides as to what the NDC and the NPP have got from the coalition. And I must also put on record that the entire 281 polling stations have not been fully collated. As at the morning, only 219 have been collated, and that is the figure the EC have been set to use to declare the result. We can hear from the NDC candidates.
The MPP candidate would have conceded honorably for the sake of the people of Ablekumanov, for the sake of the peace we have in this country and what we need. But sadly, it has to be this way. However, I just want to express my greatest gratitude to the leadership of the party, National Democratic Congress.
But the NPP candidate, Nana Ekwia Efrie, has been rejecting the declaration.
We won by 411. She got 34,199. And we had 34,610. And these were the figures we had. We are not going to accept it. We are not going to accept it. Thank you.
The NPP regional chairman, Divine Agohom, says they will take a final decision on the next step forward.
We'll get back. We are going back into our meeting today, and then very soon, by tomorrow, we should be able to, have a clear direction.
From the EC Regional Coalition here in Accra, my name is James Aveji, reporting for Joy News.
Well, still on elections, a member of parliament elect for Wawa's Superintendent Picha Lanchini Tobu says President-elect John Dramani Mahama represents the hope of Ghana, through which the people can realize their dreams and aspirations. He notes that Ghanaians suffered the pain of bad governance for 8 years under the NPP administration, and now it's time for change. There's more in this report from Rafiq Salah.
Following his success in the December 7 elections, Superintendent retired Peter Lanchene Tubu will have another bite of the pie in the 9th Parliament of Ghana. He polled 25,497 votes against his main opponent, James Kirfate, who garnered 10,235 votes. Addressing campaign team members, women groups, and some ward members of the party at Ponyentanga, Superintendent retired Peter Lanchene Tubu congratulated President-elect John Dramani Mahama, his wife Lordina Mahama, and the top hierarchy of the NDC for working to achieve a landslide victory for the party.
I want to thank His Excellency, the President-elect, President John Dramani Mahama, for the motivation, the encouragement, and letting us believe in his leadership and his vision to reset Ghana. I stand here today proud to have a President-elect who represents the hope of this country. the president who is coming to ensure that Ghana is reset in a proper manner so that we can put Ghana on the path to transformation.
Whilst urging the various ethnic groups in the constituency to see each other as one entity and the other's keeper, he admonished them not to involve themselves in any form of violence, which he said will not give them any good image.
No violence, I repeat, no violence will give us any good image. Let's remain calm and have trust and confidence in the leadership of President John Dramani Mahama that come 7th January 2025, when he takes over the reins of this country, all of us will come together to support him to succeed. Because in the National Democratic Congress, we always say we have the men. And when I say we have the men, I mean we have the men. Our men are not like the Goro boys that we had for 8 years, who have turned this country into a very useless tool. And we're attracting insult from all over the world. It's embarrassing to have a government of this nature. But we suffered the pain for 8 good years because that is democracy. You will have the best, you will have the worst, you will have good ones. But at the end of the day, you have the opportunity to make a choice. We've chosen again. I've made a choice for an experienced driver, a humble gentleman, a man who knows what to say. He knows the road. So we are going by somebody, let's go with the man who knows the road.
A former Wawes District Chief Executive and a member of the campaign team, Adamu Dasana, urged them to close their ranks and seek forgiveness from persons they may have hurt during the campaign.
God will not give you food just to go and find it on the road lying down. God passes it through somebody, and that is what he has done. And the food or the person or the people that God has passed this food through is the people who have voted for us. Let us respect each other as a people.
NDC Wawes Constituency Chairman Matthew Vary was grateful to the electorates for voting massively for John Mahama to return the power to power, assuring them that they will not regret that decision.
We are very grateful to you all, people of Wawes, and we think that the victory is not about the campaign team members, it's not about Honorable Peter Lenchene, it's not about John Dramani Mahama. The victory of today, we are standing this morning, it's about Mother Ghana. These two people will join hands together to rescue Ghana, Mother Ghana from where the level at which Dr. Bamia and Nana Adudankwa have moved us to.
Wawes Women's Organizer of the NDC, Jennifer Osman, on her part, commended President-elect John Dramani Mahama for choosing Professor Jane Nana Opoku Ajiman as his running mate, arguing that she is not in doubt that the massive support shown to the NDC in the polls is as a result of a nomination the Victory Party held at Poyentanga will be replicated in the other 17 wards in the constituency. Reporting for Joy News, Rafik Salam, Poyentanga.
Well, that's how we wrap up the bulletin. For more news, please log on to myjournline.com. My name is Faustina Savo. Good morning.